Title: Alone in the Dark, a terrifying encounter in the basement. It was a dark and stormy night. The wind was howling and the rain was coming down in sheets. Emily was alone in her house, nestled in the middle of a dense forest, far from civilization. She had always enjoyed the solitude. But tonight, it was making her feel uneasy. She tried to shake the feeling off and decided to curl up on the couch with a book. As she read, she heard a strange noise coming from upstairs. It sounded like footsteps. She froze, listening intently. After a few minutes, the noise stopped. Emily convinced herself that it was just her imagination and went back to reading. But the feeling of unease didn't go away. She felt like she was being watched, as if there was someone or something else in the house with her. She got up to check the doors and windows, making sure everything was locked. As she walked through the house, she heard the noises again. This time, they were coming from the basement. Emily was hesitant but decided to investigate. She made her way down the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest. As she reached the bottom step, she was hit with a putrid smell. It was like nothing she had ever smelled before. It made her stomach churn. She turned on the light and saw something that she would never forget. There, in the corner of the basement, was a figure. It was tall and hunched over, with long arms and legs. Its skin was gray and leathery, and it had sunken eyes that seemed to glow in the dark. Emily couldn't move. She was paralyzed with fear. The figure slowly stood up and turned to face her. She could see its mouth open, revealing rows of sharp teeth. It let out a guttural growl and started to move towards her. Emily finally found the strength to run. She bolted up the stairs, not daring to look back. She grabbed her phone and dialed 911, but there was no signal. She was alone with the creature. She ran to the front door, but it wouldn't budge. It was like something was holding it shut. She turned around and saw the creature standing at the top of the stairs, its eyes fixed on her. Emily was trapped. The creature slowly made its way down the stairs, each step accompanied by the sound of bones cracking. Emily could feel her heart beating in her throat. She closed her eyes and prayed for it to be over quickly. But nothing happened. When she opened her eyes, the creature was gone. She was alone in the basement. Emily didn't waste any time. She ran out of the house and into the forest, not stopping until she reached the nearest town. When the police arrived at her house, they found nothing out of the ordinary. No footprints, no signs of forced entry. Emily tried to explain what had happened, but no one believed her. They chalked it up to her imagination, or maybe a bad dream. But Emily knew what she had seen. She knew that there was something in that house, and it was still there, waiting for its next victim. Title: Whispers in the Woods, a terrifying encounter with the unknown. It was a warm summer night, and the stars were shining brightly in the sky. John and his friends were camping in the woods, telling ghost stories and roasting marshmallows over the fire. They were having a great time until one of them suggested they play a game of truth or dare. John was dared to spend the night alone in the woods, away from the safety of their campsite. At first, he laughed it off, thinking it was all just a silly game. But as the night wore on, he started to feel uneasy. He could hear strange noises coming from the trees, and the shadows seemed to be moving. He tried to shake the feeling off and settled down in his sleeping bag. But as he closed his eyes, he heard a whisper in his ear. It was like something was right next to him, breathing down his neck. John sat up and looked around, but he couldn't see anything. He tried to calm himself down, telling himself that it was just his imagination. But then, he felt something grab his ankle. He screamed and kicked, trying to get away. When he looked down, he saw a bony hand reaching out of the ground, trying to pull him down. John ran back to the campsite, panting and sweating. His friends tried to calm him down, but he knew what he had seen. He knew that there was something in the woods, something that wanted to harm him. The next day, they packed up their campsite and left the woods. But John couldn't shake the feeling that something was following him. Everywhere he went, he felt like he was being watched. He started seeing shadows moving out of the corner of his eye, and strange things started happening in his house. One night, he woke up to find his bedroom door creaking open. He could see a dark figure standing in the doorway, watching him. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figure started moving towards him, its eyes glowing in the dark. John could feel his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that there was no escaping this thing. He closed his eyes and waited for it to be over. But when he opened them again, the figure was gone. John was alone in his room. From that day on, John never spoke of his experience in the woods again. But every now and then, he would wake up in the middle of the night, feeling like something was watching him. He knew that he had encountered something evil, something that would never leave him alone. Title: The Haunting of the Old Mansion, A Night of Terror and Escape. It was a dark and stormy night, and the power had gone out in the old mansion. Sarah and her friends were having a sleepover, and they were all huddled together in the living room, trying to stay warm and dry. But as the night wore on, strange things started happening. They could hear footsteps coming from upstairs, but when they went to investigate, there was nobody there. They could hear whispers in the dark, but when they turned on the lights, nobody was there. They tried to shake it off, thinking it was all just their imagination, but the feeling of unease lingered. As the night wore on, one of Sarah's friends went missing. They searched the mansion from top to bottom, but she was nowhere to be found. They could hear her voice, faintly calling out for help. But they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Sarah and her remaining friends were terrified. They had to get out of the mansion, but the doors and windows were all locked. They were trapped, with no way out. As they huddled together, trying to come up with a plan, the temperature in the room dropped. They could see their breath in the air, and their teeth were chattering. They could hear something scratching at the walls, trying to get in. Sarah's heart was pounding in her chest. She knew that they were in grave danger. But just when she thought all was lost, the missing friend appeared in the doorway, covered in dirt and looking terrified. She told them that she had been trapped in a secret room, hidden behind a bookshelf. She had managed to find a way out, but in the process, she had awakened something evil. Something that had been locked away in the mansion for centuries. As they tried to make their escape, the evil presence followed them, its cold breath on their necks. They could feel its menacing presence all around them, but they pushed on, determined to get out alive. Finally, they burst through the front door, gasping for breath and drenched in rain. They looked back at the old mansion, its windows glowing with an eerie light. They knew that they had narrowly escaped something unspeakably horrific. From that day on, Sarah and her friends never spoke of the old mansion again. But they knew that the evil presence was still there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next victim.